Hello, and welcome to the AstroEnergy Astrology Show podcast with astrologer Shelley Overton.
Hi, and welcome to the November 4th, 2022 edition of the AstroEnergy Astrology Show podcast. And my name is Shelley Overton. As you heard in the intro, we're going to go over the lunar full moon eclipse next week. And so it's coming up, it's Tuesday, and I'm going to give you all the rundown, probably more thoroughly than you may even want. So yeah, let's get started with it. This chart right here is the full moon lunar eclipse from Orlando, so Eastern time zone, and it's November 8th at 6:02 a.m., which is the exact moment that the sun is opposite the moon. And not long after that, we also have an opposition to Mercury with the moon. And let me see what else. Oh, maybe Venus. Let's just double check that. So we have, it's first. Okay, so moon opposite Mercury at 5:44 a.m., then moon opposite the sun at 6:02 a.m.
And then we go on to a conjunction with Uranus at 16 of Taurus. And then there's a square of the moon to Saturn, which creates a T-square here in the sky.
And let's see, it's a very busy day. Here is 23 degrees Libra rising. We have the sun opposite moon just before Mercury is opposite the moon. Then the sun's opposite the moon. Then the moon joins with Uranus right here. And let's see what else we have. We have a moon square Saturn at 18. So of course the moon has to get past Uranus, and that happens at 11:20 a.m. So moon joins with Uranus, and then we've got a conjunction of the sun to Mercury right here, 48 minutes and 58 minutes. You can see that joins because Mercury is moving faster than the sun. And then of course Mercury goes past the sun. It is also combust when they're conjunct, which means the sun basically overpowers the energy of Mercury, and you feel very righteous in your attitudes. Then the moon is opposite Venus right here at 20 later in the day, and that happens at 2:53 p.m. Eastern and 11:50.
2:51 and 11:51 a.m. Pacific. Then the moon sextiles to Neptune, which here's Neptune, and there's the moon, so that's a good aspect. I'll go over all of these here in a minute. And we've got Mercury opposite Uranus, so Mercury's over here at 15, Uranus at 16. Later in the day at 9:40 p.m., Mercury moves forward over the sun and then opposes Uranus. And then the moon trines to Pluto, and Pluto, where's it go down here at 26 degrees.
So the moon goes, throughout the day from 15 degrees all the way to 26 because it trines, which means it's at that degree. Okay, so let's unpack this. It's a lot. Okay, first thing in the morning, moon opposite Mercury. And actually, we'll even back up to the rising sign. So 23 degrees Libra. And so I'm just going to say Eastern. Of course, the higher you go in longitude, let me see, latitude's vertical, longitude's horizontal. Okay, so 23, 2, 3 is 5, and 5 is a number of unexpected change or overall change. So just know that it's kind of a chaotic energy. I definitely liken it to a mercurial or a Uranian energy. Libra is balance, is diplomacy, is cooperation, and a lot of times indecision. So I do see, and of course, this is election day in America. So you're going to have this energy of polarity, of course, but what brings the balance, the fulcrum, is Saturn. And Saturn is saying, I understand that you're torn, but you have to make a decision. And because it's Aquarian, Saturn in Aquarius answers to Uranus, which is a very big part of this T-square and opposition and eclipse right there next to the moon at the moment. It means it's kind of a chaotic anybody's guess game as to who's going to win. I think it will be on some level a mixed bag. I think that Uranus is the planet of kind of global cooperation, group cooperation, team building, union. And this particular aspect, having Uranus in a square to Saturn in its own sign, Aquarius, Uranus's own sign, is significant. Having Scorpio planets, including the South Node, opposite Uranus squaring Saturn, and the North Node opposite, of course, they always go together anyway, is really significant because it is a moment of fate for the world. And it is a moment of decision, a jumping off point. And as a spiritual person, I would definitely say this is a time when, if you're going to put energy out to make the world a better place, to improve the situation globally in this moment of this lunar eclipse, in this moment of decision in America for politics and the polarity that we see in our political system, I would say err on the side of positivity. Put the positive thought out there. Do not err on the side of fear, because this is embedded in the psyche of America and ergo the world, because America is the melting pot of the world. It is where we, I was going to say theoretically embrace all cultures. We do attempt to embrace all cultures. I personally am fanatical about that. I think that that is what the founding fathers wanted for this country. And it is truly the purpose we were founded on under that late degree Pluto and Capricorn. We went immediately into Pluto and Aquarius after this country was founded. And that is the energy we have right now. That is where we're heading as a country. And globally, we have the energy of Uranus in Taurus squaring Saturn in Aquarius, with late degree Pluto and Capricorn, wrapping up the old story around the structure and trying to let go of how we have to tell everybody else how to live and start to take ownership for how we live. And that is the quintessential key to what Pluto and Capricorn means. And of course, Pluto rules politics. So this giant T square going on, what I see, and I know I diverted a bit from the lunar eclipse, but I think it's probably best to get the politics out of the way. And everybody, sorry, my hair is bugging me. It's just always like this. Every time I do a podcast, my hair's in my face, my nose gets tickled because of angelic flicking it. Who knows what it is? But bear with me. So yeah, the information I'm giving you is worth the annoyance, I suppose. The global and larger picture effect of what this has in it embedded is we are looking to balance, because Saturn is the fulcrum. Saturn structure, groundedness, rootedness is in Aquarius. And that means we are trying to get a global picture, a cooperative team building energy. I think this is significant because it is kind of like the leader of the discussion. It is where we look for the referee. And because it's an Aquarius, it is about us, not about you or them. And that's what this Taurus opposite Scorpio, they're all like lining up on teams. And then you have a referee in the middle saying, okay, hold on there. You each have a relevant point of view, but we have to work together as a collective. So I think it will be a mixed bag of decisions. I think that there may be some gains on both sides. And I know that sounds middle of the road, but a lot of times that's what the majority are, is middle of the road. The extremists have had a place for 15 years easily. And now we've got this balance going on. So this particular election, I don't think it's going to be a winner take all. Uranus up here squaring Saturn is a lesson. It's about having the friction and having the lesson and the growth, because Saturn is the ruler of an earth energy, Capricorn, and Uranus in Taurus. Taurus is an earth energy. It's about pragmatism. And of course, the Taurus energy, I think, is normally the conservative energy in the zodiac. It does rule money, it rules markets, it rules all that. Uranus, as I've said, is cryptocurrency. And so you see this energy, especially, again, the square to the energy of Uranus, Aquarius squaring Uranus, both in earth energies, is about shoring up the storyline behind crypto, getting the bugs out of that system, that particular monetary system. And then the moon is infusing that with a storyline culmination. It is saying this is how it needs to be, and this is what we're going to do. So the moon says, okay, here's how you go about doing it. This is what I deem to be the answer. And then the sun and Mercury, okay, so the sun, Mercury, and Scorpio side with the South Node, which is this is what we came in with, this is how we've done, a little bit more dogmatic. Taurus is still kind of new energy in the zodiac. It's the second house ruler. It is Venus, a little bit more, I would say, flexible, even though it's a fixed sign. Scorpio is ruled by Pluto, and Pluto's willing to burn it down to the ground to prove a point, where Taurus, being a Venusian ruler, wants it still to be balanced and pleasing and cooperative on some level, because that's what Venus, she's a receptive energy, and so she's willing to listen and make adjustments. And so is Uranus, where Scorpio can be really dogmatic and grounded in, and like I said, willing to burn it to the ground. Mercury joined with the sun is going to be extremely rooted in and say, no, how I see this is how it is. And how can you not see this? The sun's shining, lighting everything up. Mercury says, look at this. And keep in mind, Scorpio likes to hide stuff. So Mercury likes to talk about it, and Sun wants to shine the light on it. So Sun in Scorpio isn't necessarily a comfortable placement for the Sun. It is the ruler of the squaring sign of Leo up here. And Leo is more about leadership and what I can do to be the center of attention in its lower energy, but very creative and forward thinking in its positive energy. And then Mercury, and forward thinking and encompassing relationships and being relatable to other people. And then Scorpio also has that sense about wanting to connect on a very deep, not shallow level. And so Scorpio is more, though, about doing strategy behind the scenes. And yet that sun is saying we need to be creative. And Mercury is saying, yeah, what the sun said. So Mercury basically has to be along for the ride. And when I say Mercury is this and sun is that, it's like these energies bring in situations or people to express that energy. And we have events, we have behavior, and we have people to represent that energy. So basically, it's the archetype of the planet that brings in this storyline. And so there is a Sun in Scorpio person, there is a Mercury in Scorpio person joining together. Mercury wants to talk about it, wants to think about it, is the practical side. Scorpio is the solution seeker. So someone represents that analytical solution seeker. The sun wants to be the leader, wants to be the lead strategist. Mercury is the second-hand person there talking to the sun. So you've got a leader, you've got someone at their side talking about the strategy, looking for the solution. South Node, what came in from the past, what we know to be true from the past. Scorpio wants integrity in its positive side, wants to keep secrets in its negative side. But with the sun 2 degrees off of the South Node, I see this as secrets are not going to be kept. Mercury is not going to keep those secrets. Those secrets are coming out. And the secrets also relate to values and sex, because Pluto rules the sex energy as a means of coercion, so to speak. And so that sexual energy can be used to coerce people under this particular aspect. Well, and under any scorpionic energy, you're going to have coercion through power in its lower energies. In its positive energy, we have clear-cut decision making, which kind of makes up for that Libra energy, which is always trying to balance. So you can see my hands, balance two different sides. And the fulcrum, Saturn, is balancing it. But Saturn over here is saying you have to play by the rules. And the rules are a little chaotic because they're quantum. These are no longer linear rules we're going to play by. This is the future. This is cooperation amongst peoples. It is not just one way or the other. It is multiple ways. So what I see from Saturn in Aquarius in this political energy is very much taking into account everybody's opinion and finding a solution from multiple points of view. And then you go back to the South Node saying, okay, we have to have values from the past. We have to have something that we know we came in with, some understanding, a deeper, less shallow understanding from the past. Mercury is saying, yeah, I get you. You know, Mercury just went over 13 degrees, already talked to the South Node, says, yeah, you know, we need to do something more profound here. Mercury and Sun are going to strategize it. So you've got one side of this political system strategizing to the hilt and using all the energy they can, all the covert energy, so to speak, but it's not really going well because you've got Mercury and the Sun combust next to the South Node. It's getting called out. The Sun in Scorpio is calling it out. And then you have Venus. Venus went ahead of the game. She is very much in the Taurian energy. I mean, has a cooperation with Taurus energy because she's the ruler of Taurus. So now she's opposite, going, oh, let me step outside of my singular minded or maybe couple, because Taurus does rule couples, but she's on the first 3 houses side of the zodiac. She's the second house, and that's still learning. That is, like, if you look at the zodiac as a complete system, the first house is being born, the second house is, hey, this is what it's like to be in the material world, learning how to be in the material world. So Venus was in the energy of Taurus, you know, as her assigned energy, but now she's on the opposite side. So it's like she has this ability to step outside of herself and see things from the collective or from the other perspective. And now she's over in Scorpio going, okay, I see a deeper side of a deeper meaning. I've got chills with that. So there's something about cooperation and commitment and, you know, basing what she knows on a deeper understanding of what has to happen. So she's running ahead of the game. She is the feminine. She is the deep. I wish I had a better word for it than deep, a significant, a profound way of looking at things, really digging in, a deep researched understanding, and it's desire. She feels the desire. She feels the feminine receptive because Scorpio is a feminine sign, even though she rules Libra. Libra by placement is a masculine energy with feminine ruler, which wrap your mind around that. So Venus here is saying, yeah, you know, I've got a deeper understanding of the feminine desire over here in this energy. And the Sun, the ego, is in cahoots with the mindset, and it's from the past. It is a sexual energy, a feminine energy. So yes, the abortion issue is going to factor into this energy right here. And then, of course, the other side is Moon, women, mothers in Taurus, the North Node, a place that maybe was uncomfortable calling things out because the North Node is the future that we aren't familiar with. The South Node is the past. We're very familiar coming in with that. The North Node doesn't necessarily understand what it looks like when it's complete, but knows that that's where the future is, that's where the fortune is. And so we are on the path to the future with feminine energy, mother energy, definitely about motherly cooperation and motherly stories, and feminine stories, the home, the heart, the family. Uranus, the unexpected, but definitely how the collective sees the feminine storyline and the mother storyline. So I think the abortion issue is probably going to play a significant role in this election. I wasn't necessarily thinking that it would. I think that the conservative storyline always defaults to money, but personally, I'm intuiting that there is this moment in time politically here in America where people are not just taking the talking heads at face value, and they're really looking around themselves and seeing what the systems and the energy of the moment is telling them. And I think that collectively we are going to make decisions based on what we intuitively know. All this Scorpio energy is bringing that in. And then Uranus, which is clear-mindedness in association with the moon, in Taurus, which is desire. Of course, Uranus is retrograde, but It is 1 degree away, and the two energies are coming at each other because Uranus is going backwards and Moon is moving forward. You've got the Moon really very close to Uranus at the moment of the eclipse. The eclipse does go across Europe, a partial lunar eclipse across Europe. And so they are going to be the ones that are kind of in the crosshairs, so to speak. So I do see this as a significant eclipse for Europe specifically. And it does go through, I believe, Moscow, unless that was the solar one. But I know Europe as a whole is really getting hit very directly by this particular eclipse. The energy that I'm reading, given the players, and I find it really interesting that the majority of the players, with the exception of Uranus, are quicker moving planets. So it is interpersonal issues that are calling this election. And then you have Saturn, which is the farthest reaches of the Eastern astrology. So usually Eastern astrology goes through Saturn. I mean, not a Vedic astrologer, but I know Saturn historically is kind of a very significant, along with the moon and the sun, significant player in Eastern or Indian astrology, Vedic astrology. In Western astrology, of course, we go through Pluto, and then we now are opening up to asteroids. It's getting very expansive right now. And that's partially because Uranus and Aquarius rule astrology, and they are both so significant in the storyline coming in. Saturn having gone through Aquarius, Uranus now in the beginning energies of another rotation around the zodiac, only the second sign, Taurus, and then Pluto going into Aquarius next year. It is a true awakening of clarity, of mentally channeling in new and expansive energy, and that's for the collective. Yeah, the energy I see very much, Saturn is authority, but Aquarius is, you're not going to escape the people. This is the collective, this is the people, and Saturn is the referee. Metaphorically and literally, I think it is the referee for what's going on. And so you have all this energy. I think the scorpionic energy may be a little bit more difficult to deal with because Scorpio really has to get outside of that knowingness, that Mercury Sun combust, and really be in the emotions of the moment. And so, yeah, Mercury Sun together really make us feel very righteous. But in Scorpio, it's like Scorpio will go to the hilt, go as far as they can. And then when they realize they're hitting their heads against a brick wall and it hurts and it isn't moving, they will finally get to the point of, okay, I have to change. But how do they change? They change through saying, fine, if I can't have the game my way, nobody can have the game. And they'll let it all go, and they'll let it collapse on itself or burn to the ground. And then they'll come out of the ashes and reinvent themselves. And so that moment of coming out of the ashes and reinventing yourself is when that newness comes in for Scorpio. And so right now we're kind of at the burn it down moment for Scorpio. So that's politically, okay? Can I give you an outcome of this? No, I can't give you an outcome. I will say that there will be gains for the Republicans. There will be gains for the Democrats. The cooperation aspect of this, because look at it. You've got 4 energies in Scorpio, 3 energies in Taurus, and Saturn at the central point of the fulcrum here with the T-square. That's just what we have with those planets. That's not even taking into account any aspects between a retrograde Mars, Jupiter, and Neptune now within striking distance at a conjunction, and then Pluto having an inconjunct to Mars, Pluto having sextiles to Neptune and Jupiter, which is really awesome. And we'll get to that here in a minute after we go through, you know, the lunar eclipse. It's so much.
Hey, this is Shelley. I wanted to give you a heads up that there are a lot of new art prints at ShelleyOverton.com. So go over there and check them out. ShelleyOverton.com. Thanks.
Shimmy, shimmy, yeah, shimmy, in, shimmy, yeah. Give me the mic so I can take it away. Up on a natural charge, bon voyage. Yeah, from the home of the Dodger Brooklyn squad. Wu-Tang Killer bees on the swarm. Rain
Okay, yeah, and then we go over to what's going on personally. This is the interpersonal stuff. So that's just politically. And now we go to interpersonal. And what does this mean for us? Everybody has Scorpio in their chart. Everybody has Taurus in their chart and all the signs. So it really would behoove you to know your chart and know what's going on in your personal chart. I can tell you my personal chart, I have a 12-degree sun, not sun, my bad, moon, a 12-degree moon. So the south node is right on my moon. And my Neptune is a 15-degree Scorpio. So this directly hits my moon and Neptune in my first house of self. And that's my identity as a person who commits. I commit to things that I have a strong desire for. So if you're a Scorpio rising, or even in this case, you see Libras here, but there's a ton of Scorpio in the first house, your Scorpio rising sign is getting hit in your identity, your sense of self, and how you commit to another, how you commit to your value, how you commit to your finances in the cooperative energy of a partnership. And then you have the opposite side, which is the house of marriage and partnership. And there's something new that you're wanting to bring in. There's something that you don't know how it looks. You know that it's there. You know you may want it. And it is significant. It is going to happen. But how is it going to happen? Because you've got all these desires, Venus, Sun, how you think of it, and what you know to be true, in opposition to the new and the unusual, to the new way of bringing it in, to something that isn't comfortable, which is Uranus in Taurus, and it's retrograde. So normally Uranus moving forward is about the idea, about something new, something that's unusual. It is eccentric and eclectic. It's the alternate way of looking at things. And now it's retrograde. So it makes us go back over what we see as new and unusual and say, is this working? Here's a nice, it's kind of like if you brainstorm something and then you throw out all the ideas and then you sit back and look at what those ideas were. And you say, okay, now we've got these ideas. Will any of them work? Are any of them valid? Do they hold water, so to speak? And so the moon is bringing in that deep need for commitment, in this particular chart, there is a certain amount of cooperation with another. If those planets, North Node is a point in the sky, but if the North Node, the moon, and Uranus were up here in the 8th house, it would be about commitment. But we have the ones that are committing on the other side in the Scorpio energy. These planets over here in the Libra house are the ones that are looking at the idea of, how do I relate to you? Do I relate enough to give the idea of commitment a try? And really wanting the idea of balance, the idea of cooperation, the idea of being in that partnership. And so that can be marriage, that can be business partnership, or a combination of both, because Uranus is entrepreneurship. And Taurus is about making money somehow in a physical, tangible sense. So this is very much, do I have a partner that I can do that business with, have an entrepreneurial situation with? And then you've got the romance of the Taurus, and then you have the unexpected or the path unseen or unknown North Node, destined North Node, and the kind of the committing engine, the deciding factor of the moon, saying, yeah, this is really where I want to head, but I don't know what it looks like. And then the opposite side is saying, okay, we have this balance point going on and a synergistic energy between self, me and I, and the other, us and we. What is that going to look like? And so you've got what you know to be true, what you know in your gut is the right decision. And then you have what you don't know, which is how it's going to look when you put it into practical use. That energy in our lives is going to fulfill, so to speak, when the energies get further on. The energy that will probably be more indicative of near future activities and outcomes is not going to be Gemini per se, although moon goes into Gemini within a day. It's going to be on the other side, because the moon, when it gets to Gemini, goes into the house of commitment for this lunar eclipse. And that is duality. It means two people. And it is also in the sign Mars in Gemini retrograde is, which means there are two choices and we have to make a choice. The moon is going to review those two choices, the commitment, and then basically discuss it with Mars. What do you find is the value? Because remember, the 8th house wants the value, the ultimate value, not just Taurus, which is superficial material world value, but it actually wants, what's the word? Intrinsic value. Scorpio is about intrinsic value, inherent value. It comes with value. Whether or not we assess it as such, it is inherently valuable. So the moon joining with Mars is going to be a bit of a decision-making point after the lunar eclipse. So within a day or two, there will be like this deciding energy. And then once the moon gets to that 25, so if you look at this as a solid chart, like this is status quo, this is a fixed chart, a birth of this eclipse, a birth of a moment in time where you may have a decision that comes about from this energy. It is a photograph set in stone kind of moment, like a birth chart. The moon moves just out of the house of commitment and releases the energy of that particular house, which is the understanding on an intrinsic level, the value, and then talks to Mars, the god of war, the deciding factor, the engine of purpose. Saturn is the purpose. The engine to get us to our purpose is Mars. So moon hits Mars just outside of the house of commitment and says, this is really what I feel is my choice. And Mars still has a little bit of kind of cogitation, a little bit of action around that deciding factor. He is still going retrograde. He goes retrograde through November. I believe it's the end of November he goes direct. Let me see if that's true. No. Oh God. He's retrograde into January. I think it was the 10th. Okay, so Jupiter goes direct the end of November. Mars is retrograde till like the 10th of January, in which case he has completed his time all the way back to about 8 or 10 degrees of Gemini, which is the last degree of the first 10 degrees of Gemini, which is the finishing off of that brash Gemini decant. So the first 10 degrees are Gemini. The next 10 degrees are Libra, which is the marriage partnership energy. And the last 10 degrees are Aquarius, which is an alternate way of looking at things, coming up with a solution. That's where he's at right now. He's retrograde in the Aquarius Gemini sector, decant. And so he's still trying to bring in everybody's opinion for cooperative energy for all of us. And then he goes backwards through the 10 degrees of Libra, which is me versus you, us versus them, opposites. How do we get cooperation out of two seemingly opposing factors? And then he gets to 10 degrees and it's about duality. Like I can see this and I can see that, and I can see this, I can see that. When he goes direct, he'll get all the way through all that chaotic energy, through every way of looking at different angles. And then he'll get back to this degree where he met the moon, and then he'll go into Cancer. And Cancer is the moon's territory. The moon goes through the Gemini, the duality, and gets to Cancer and says, I want the thing that's secure. I want the thing that makes me feel like I'm home. But keep in mind, it's the 9th house, which is foreign energy. It's freedom. It's expression of self in a physical sense and taking action towards that higher spiritual viewpoint. So I would say, as far as this lunar chart is concerned with the eclipse, we aren't even going to see the culmination of this energy until Mars gets to Cancer, which is the end of March. And so it's a very significant month. I've said it many times, but keep in mind, Saturn goes into Pisces out of Aquarius. Pluto goes into Aquarius out of Capricorn, and Mars goes into Cancer out of Gemini for 7 months. all in March of 2023. We are really having a moment in time of significant change, of change around groups, of change around friends and neighborhoods. So there will be moving, there will be a reassessment and a realignment of our lives, and it's going to be significant in ways that are global. This is a major, major shift coming in March. I can't stress it enough. We'll talk more about the individual shifts further on as we get to the end of the year, because it's going to be such a significant shift for us. And what's going on with the lunar eclipse, in my mind, is a precursor of some of the events that will definitely take place, because Saturn is only midway through Aquarius and it has till March to get to Pisces. So we still have maybe a little less, 5 months, whatever it is, 4.5. So it's a lot. It's a lot to unpack. Okay, so what I'm going to do for interpersonal stuff is I'm going to go planet by planet and let you know what this is. So here in the first house, South, and this is interpersonal, so what's going to happen in your personal lives. These are thematic because it's based on the moment of time here. And of course, it's Orlando, but it's Eastern time zone. And it is still significant because even though this shows first and seventh house, first is self and identity. Sun is in Scorpio, that is self and identity, no matter what house we're looking at. And then the other is the Libra area of the sky, which answers to Venus, and that's relationships and partnership. 3 entities in that energy. So it is still about relationships. Scorpio is about connection and commitment, understanding the value, which situation has most value, and making that decision. And then, of course, the Taurus energy, it's in the Libra house in this. So it's going to be about marriage and partnership. It's going to be about commitment. It's going to be about couples. And then down here, where Saturn is in the house of home and family, along with Pluto. And Pluto is career. So you basically have it's not a trifecta, it's quad, it's 4 sectors of the sky being affected here, maybe even more because you have Pluto and Capricorn, which is really significant. But you have Aquarius, Leo, Taurus, Scorpio, the fixed signs, and then you have Capricorn. So what you've got here is a storyline around relationship. So the South Node is the past, is where we were in the past. What commitments did we make in the past? Mercury is neighbors, children, what we think about, how our mind works, how we want to express ourselves and communicate our inner truth, our deep intuitive truth, which is basically claircognizant. It's what we know to be true. Sun, ego, sense of self, feeling that we know who we are. It's our sense of identity. It's what we align our egos with in a very deep sense. So this is the value we've associated with righteousness, with integrity. And then Venus, of course, the goddess of love, beauty, and money, the material world, retail, in Scorpio. So it is, let's see, Scorpio, Pisces, Cancer are the decans, and it's in the Cancer decan, which is home and family. So Venus is going into the last decan of Scorpio, Cancer, really deciding what home should look like. And then that's kind of the theme, like what do we feel secure in? What do we feel at home with? What are those feelings, the deep knowingness to make those decisions? Because it is a black and white decision. If you have the knowingness and the integrity, you know. And then the South Node wants all of that, wants the desire, wants the ego, wants the mind and the analysis to line up. And we know it intrinsically from how we intuit our knowingness from past lives. You know, what is where we have integrated our own intuition and psychic awareness of what we know to be true, that is our truth. And it's not an opinion, and it's not a fear. It is really what's in our body, what's in our beingness, what's in our soul. Pluto, the ruling planet of Scorpio in late Capricorn, now direct, is at odds with Mars. Mars wants duality. Mars wants both things to be true. Mars sees both things as true. And then Pluto in Capricorn says, no, they're not both true. There is a material world, tangibility of goods, and truthfulness with integrity. That is what Pluto is about in its highest form, is integrity. So definite at odds with those two energies right now. They are 1 degree off of an exact quincunx / in conjunct 150-degree aspect. So Mars still trying to show two sides of things, two sides, this and that are true. Pluto's saying, yeah, I understand you think that's true, but it's not true, because Pluto is in cooperation with late degree Scorpio. Venus is going to be in alignment with Pluto's truth. Then Mercury will get there, then the sun will get there, and the north node's going, or the south node's going the other way. South node's going retrograde. We'll go back up into Libra at some point, but has transited through up to 13 degrees, so 17 degrees of the sign. Okay, moving over to personal energy with Saturn and Aquarius. It is about having your own business. It's about maybe two factors coming in. The Taurian side of things, which is the entrepreneurial money security side, and then the Scorpionic side, which is inner truth, inner knowingness, and how to make that valid for the couple, for the cooperation between two parties. So you have my money and our money and the cooperation between both. And quite honestly, this energy, Uranus next to the moon, Saturn in Aquarius, says you have to have a leap of faith. It's a leap of faith. The North Node, we don't know what it's going to look like, but it's okay because Spirit is supporting it. It is on board. It is okay. You have the past, the Scorpio, the knowingness, the tangible inner knowingness, and then the future, which is unknown, but still supportive. It is jumping off the cliff knowing, and not without a parachute. Scorpio is the parachute, but the North Node is knowing when to pull the parachute and knowing it's going to be okay. So it is Spirit. It's quantum understanding. And then the final energies here are square between Mars and Jupiter, Neptune. Jupiter is freedom, is higher understanding, is going back over our wisdom that from the past. This is the wise sage trying to glean the last juice and drops of information from the inner knowingness and the connectedness to Spirit, the connectedness to a greater wisdom through our emotions and emotional life. It is the ending degree, 29, the last degree of the zodiac, the last sign, the last degree. Jupiter wants to move forward, desperately wants to move forward. The first half of the year was Jupiter in Aries. We will get back there the beginning of next year. But through the end of this year, of course, Jupiter goes direct the end of November, gets back into Aries the end of December, and then starts this new year off, this coming new year, the same way he did last new year, going into Aries. And so it is really the final ability to move forward with the new story coming in next year. And Aries is very driven. Of course, Aries is Mars energy. And so for this time, Mars is retrograde, Jupiter's retrograde, Neptune's retrograde in a square aspect, 90 degrees. And so there's a lot to be discussed between these three energies. Mars is very brash and wants everything, wants his cake and eat it too. And in this energy, with the lunar eclipse, if you use that as the deciding factor for the next 6 months of what's going to play out, is you can't have that because you have a square to Neptune, the ideal, the dream, and you have a square to Jupiter, which is expansion and higher knowingness, higher understanding, and also where you're heading. You also have an inconjunct to Pluto, which is the structure it will take. And you have a trine, a wide trine. Of course, Jupiter will get into an exact trine with Saturn. And that energy is going to be like, you have two ideas, but the answer, the solution is in getting outside of what you know of these two things and moving to like an unusual solution. The answer lies in something you don't even know yet necessarily, or something you're not looking at. It comes in as a knowingness, as something you're not aware of yet. So it is the unseen solution, and that energy that will maybe take you by surprise. It's unexpected, but it is an alternative solution that you maybe haven't thought of yet, which will be maybe it's compromise. It's a compromise. It's trying to use what we have and make it into something that's workable for everyone, using unusual means, using a broader sense. And honestly, it's also a solution that could come in through spirit, through channeled energy, through information that comes from a higher source. So you have to be broader minded and allow. It is very much an allowing energy. And then the square with Neptune digs in and gets so moody, so emotional, so honestly fixated on the past and what happened, especially retrograde right now. Neptune just says, but this was in the past and this meant so much. I'm so sentimental. And it really hurts me to think that that isn't going to be part of the solution. And Mars is challenging it. It's challenging the tradition. It's challenging the storyline from the past, the history of sentimentality, of whatever was the sentimental storyline. Jupiter wants to move forward, does not like Pisces energy, is kind of kicking and screaming going back into Pisces, honestly. And I would say even the energy of Jupiter, it's representative of someone who has to keep moving on, of the spiritual seeker, of the traveler, the adventurer. And now he's being forced to go back scuba diving into a place he'd already been. You know, let's just be honest, Jupiter gets the experience, understands the experience, and wants to move on to the new experience. But he's being forced to go back on the boat, go back to the reef that he was already in before. He knows the reef. Maybe he left something at the reef, and he's going to have to go down, scuba dive down to the bottom of the reef and go to the place he's been before. And he doesn't want to have to go, but he's going to get something really valuable from what he's seen in the past, and that is the Neptune energy. He's going to rediscover something that was sentimental so that he can integrate it, which is what this retrograde does. It integrates and gives it value, understands that it's a moment in time. There are emotions. We see the emotions and we integrate them so that once Jupiter goes direct, the end of November, he can release as he moves forward through these last degrees, say his goodbyes, and then move on to the new energy coming in next year. So next year is going to be a 5-year. Well, let me see, it's maybe a 7. 2023 is a 7-year, but 23 is a 5-year. Interesting, like I said, Libra 23. And then if you look over here at Pisces 23, you've got a lot of 22, 23, 24, and then we have 26-degree Pluto, and I guess 29 Jupiter. So it's a lot of late degrees. It's a lot of using unusual energy to come to a conclusion. We're not necessarily going to know the answer. We're not necessarily going to be comfortable with it, but it's coming in. It's transitionary. It's integrative, cooperative, and kind of like you get a little something, they get a little something, and let's cooperate for frick's sake. Anyway, that's what I have for you. And that's not even the moon. So we'll fly through the moons next week. I'm going to start with Sunday. We have a Taurus moon at 9:15 p.m. And that's Pacific. And then the Venus energy squares Saturn overnight on Sunday, the 6th. And then the 7th, we have moon in Taurus. Venus, the ruling planet of the moon in Taurus, squares Saturn. So again, more of that energy of money and value. And what do we see as the situation within a couple? Because we have Saturn is the structure, Venus in Scorpio is the deep feeling emotion. And then, of course, Tuesday, we've gone through every iota of that, and that's the lunar eclipse. Wednesday, the moon enters Gemini. Like I said, it goes into the duality of that. I do want to say this because this happened to me this week. I want to give you a heads up. As long as Mars is in Gemini, there is duality. There's also duplicity, and N degrees very much makes, and it's also an inconjunct to the energy of Scorpio. And Venus in late Scorpio is going to be money, joint finances in a negative aspect to a potentially fraudulent energy, dualistic and duplicitous energy of Mars. I had a debit card stolen from me. I'm absolutely convinced. I went to Goodwill. I presented my card very quickly to pay for an item, set my water jug, and it's not even a pretty one. I will show you. Look at this. This is my water bottle, if I can get it to come in. Look at this. It's lavender. It's cute. It has a stain on it from lipstick. But, it was sitting there facing just like this to the lady. And I gave her my debit card for the purchase. And right at the moment she would give the debit card back after the payment, she's like, "Oh, that's a cute water bottle." And I'm thinking, flattery, Venus and Leo got flattery. Oh, really? I'm kind of thinking that's weird. It's not even that attractive, but okay, thank you. And she hands me the receipt. I leave the store and I get to the next store, right next door, don't have my card. So I found another way to pay. I went to my car, which was way out in the parking lot. I'm like, you know what? It's not in my purse. I looked through everything, looked in the car, not there. Went back into the store, the Goodwill, and told the lady at the counter, who it was a different lady. She called the other lady forward. And I said, I don't have my card. I didn't get my card back. And she's like, "Well, no, I gave it to you." And I'm like, I remember she did not. She gave me a receipt. And one of the means of fraud or, taking advantage of people, like when you're walking in a crowd and pickpockets come through, they distract you. A lot of times they'll do it in twos. One person will bump you and you'll be like, "Oh, that was jarring. That was, out of my mind. I'm just walking here in my zone." And then somebody bumped me and your attention is there. And meanwhile, the other person comes up and grabs something out of your pocket or your purse or whatever. You don't even think anything about it. You just know that you were jarred out of your stupor. Well, that's kind of what happens when you're at the counter and they, draw your attention to something else, and it's flattery. So if you're susceptible to flattery, your mind is on that. And then she didn't give back the card. She gives you back something and you're thinking, "Oh, I got something back," and you don't think about the card. You go on your merry way and the card's gone. And so I immediately canceled it. And it was really disheartening that people would do that, but I'm pretty sure it was nowhere to be found. It was nowhere around. I'm very particular about things like that. I put my cards away right after, and it wasn't in my wallet. It wasn't where I usually put it. So I'm pretty sure she took it. And that energy is really predominant right now. So please do be aware that there are energies and people out there who are looking to take advantage of you at this time. And I would say through the end of the year. This goes for Christmas shopping. It goes for being out in the public. Be careful with your money. Be careful with your debit cards. Look at the pump. They have the little devices that can take your number off of a pump. I've had that happen to me at a gas station. And so just be really cautious right now. This is my alert to you. And the other thing is driving. Just be super cautious around appliances, around travel, neighbors. So much stuff going on with that Mars and Gemini that brings in an unsavory element given other aspects of what's going on right now. Okay, it could be tangible goods, and we are heading into the purchasing season. So I think this season for Christmas, they're going to be a lot more of those type of people and that kind of energy going around. That's my caution to you. Thank you for showing up. I think there was a jam-packed podcast this time. So you might have to listen twice, take notes, and see you next week. And happy birthday to my Scorpio friends. Bye. Who knows? Maybe I'll edit that out. Who knows? Yeah, what the hell? There we go. I just trying to keep it out of my face. There we go.
To purchase my ebook, Learn Astrology, you can find it at angeliczodiac.com. Hi, this is Shelley. Thank you for joining us this week. To contact me for a private reading, go to angeliczodiac.com under the Readings tab. Background music was provided by Kevin MacLeod at incompetech.com. Be sure to check back next week and subscribe through iTunes at AstroEnergy Astrology Show.